So yeah, thanks to everyone for coming in here. Maybe we'll just do some introductions. Justin, do you want to start?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I'm the head of support here at Frontly, and I've likely interacted with a lot of you to some extent through our supporting channels, gathered your feedback, worked out issues, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing what Patrick is sharing with us today because yeah, it's going to be a big update, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't even know if I showed Justin most of this yet. So this is
I'm
actually
kind of in the dark here too, so I'm kind of like chomping at the bit here as well.
That's half the fun of it. I like to shock everybody as much as I can. So yeah, what I'm gonna do. So Justin, I'm gonna, just because I'm gonna get ready to share my screen. I'm gonna close the whole chat and attendees screen, so I won't really be able to see that.
Got you.
If anything
Yeah.
pops up, feel free to interrupt me basically at any time if there's anything really worth going into. But I'll try to take breaks every 5 minutes of rambling and see if there's anything we can cover. So I think what I'll do is probably just start getting into it. I think because we're showcasing this new AI app generator and how you'll be able to prompt with AI and some styling things, I think we can probably do like a few iterations of it. And so I can just start with one, and then if more people continue to stream in, maybe you can let me know if you see like a decent bump, and then I can try to reiterate a little bit. So perfect. All right. So I'm just gonna start sharing my screen. Maybe Justin, you can just confirm when this is good. So let's see here. No. Okay. Can you see this?
I sure can.
Wonderful. So, if you've been in Frontly for a while, you may have seen a few different iterations of us trying to create a system that allows you to build apps with AI. And historically, it's been quite simple. Realistically, it has been useful to generate what we call a starter app, where it generates the pages and maybe the data tables and maybe selects a few of the the blocks that would go on a page, like a table or something like that. But I feel like we've never really cracked sort of taking it to the next level, where you can really get like more specific kind of custom stuff. And to be fair, we're not quite there yet in terms of the logic and stuff like that. But that is part of this plan, and I'm hoping that over the next few weeks we're going to be able to get there. But what I'm going to show you right now is our brand new, create with AI system that's going to be going live, hopefully, maybe even in the next week or so. All right. So, as usual, it all starts with some initial prompt. So, I've got a few basic examples here. Here's one that says a custom app for my barber shop to manage clients, appointments, and team schedules. So pretty simple. Sounds like we'd need, a few pages and some data tables and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click next, and you'll see that in real time here, we've got several pages generated. So what we decided to do for this iteration is in these first stages where, it's not like a functional app yet, and we're just sort of like ideating, we're trying to keep things very simple and in very sort of non-technical language, to the point where you as a user can just literally read what it says here, clients page, manage client profiles, history, and preferences, store client contact info, track appointment history, record specific preferences, those kinds of things. So each one has 3 bullet points and a description. And so we're kind of hoping that at this stage, this is enough for you. You're just going deeper. It's essentially the AI just trying to sort of expand a little bit on your prompt to really kind of get a bit more granular, just in terms of the pages themselves and what the functionality might have. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have this system right now where you where you click request revision. And if you click on that, there'll be a modal pop-up, and you'll be able to essentially just provide more information about what you want to revise about this in particular. I haven't built this yet because I'm more focused on this other part that I'll show you soon. But essentially, it's just like adding another prompt, right? So, you know, you have your initial prompt, you'll see this, and then you'll be able to, you know, revise it a bit. And I don't know right now if I can delete pages or not, but anyway, I'm not going to bother. So let's say I'm quite happy with this, and I think this does sound like a, you know, a valid set of pages for my barbershop app. So I'm just going to go continue to app data. And so very similarly, now we're going to rip through and generate the different data tables that would make sense, and the fields, and even some example data for this app. So you can see we've got the field types sort of labeled here, and we've got this nice sample data. So it's really simple, nice clean interface to just give you this high level of, hey, you know, we've determined the pages. Now let's talk about the data. The data is not very exciting, but it is sort of a core part of your app, especially when we get into the page builder and we start to, you know, actually try to link this stuff up and make it functional. So this is actually the final step of what we're calling the sort of new app creation system with AI. So once I click continue to app interface, what's going to happen is I'm now jumping into this page, and the AI is taking my description that we had in the previous step, and in real time, it's generating some information essentially. You know, right now it's trying to create a layout. To be clear, because this is still in progress, right now we're actually having the AI focus on the sort of layout and structure, and the AI isn't currently in this stage generating, you know, tables and forms and stuff like that. I'll show you when I get to this final step how the new rendering system works, and, you know, what we're planning on doing with that. But because we have this new AI Copilot, so, you know, this is essentially a chat system that you're going to be able to use while you're actually in the page builder, not just in this initial step. And so, you know, the AI has taken my prompt, which was which was generated from that pages step, and I have the option to either clear changes or accept the changes. Let's say I'm just going to accept them. And then what I can do is I can go click on another one of these pages, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to click on appointments. And once again, the AI is automatically going to go through, and it's trying to generate a custom page layout completely, you know, from scratch based on what we talked about. So, you know, there's some information here. You know, this looks pretty cool. I will be able to fully edit all of this. And so, you know, in the completed version as well, we're gonna make sure that this is essentially fully functional. So, you know, things like a form with input fields, those kinds of things, that stuff will be functional. So let's just try one more. Maybe I'll click on the clients, and we'll see what this comes up with. Oops, I got to open my AI Copilot. So again, just seeing this live user interface generation, which is honestly just quite fun to watch. I think I think you'll all probably start to feel like this is a bit of a game where you can just kind of sit around generating interfaces and seeing what happens. And you know, this is still just really basic. Like these prompts are coming from the page descriptions, so they are high level, and they're not really even describing like how we would want that to work. And so, you know, looking at this page as an example, the AI has made some pretty good decisions, I think. You know, it's got a nice header, a button. It's got this cool little sort of search form where I guess you type in a client ID and you'd be able to sort of find them in the list or something, and then detail view. So this is very cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Open Visual Editor. So this is essentially the transition point between the initial onboarding flow and the actual app builder. So, you know, I'm now in the app builder. I'm just going to hit save just to make sure that, you know, nothing gets lost from that initial setup. But now you can see that as I go through here, I've just got blocks that I can make changes to. So I can kind of do whatever I want with these. Now, at this point, I have to explain what we're talking about when we're talking about this new sort of page rendering system. It's kind of a whole new way of just approaching the basics of how a page is structured and styled in Frontly. And so I think this is where, a lot of our power users, especially people who are trying to use CSS and stuff like that, I think you're all going to be really, really happy with how this update is going to go out and how it's going to enable you to build some really wild stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go click new page. I'm just going to start totally fresh. So I'm going to call this, let's see, I'm going to call this profile cards. And I'm going to try hopping into my AI Copilot. So now I get a chance to actually just try the Copilot on its own, not based on, some pre-existing prompt. So I'm going to try something like this. A user profile card with a name, email, a large image on the side, and a big button that says, I'll say a big blue button that says contact user. All right, so this is pretty simple. I could probably provide more information, but let's just see what happens. So you can see I've got my card appearing, and that was pretty fast. And honestly, it was great. So that's pretty much exactly what I wanted. I have the option to either clear or accept. So if I accept, it essentially becomes part of my page. If I clear it, it disappears and it's essentially reverted. So it's kind of nice because you don't have to be fearful that the AI is going to sort of go in real time and destroy your page. Now, we're definitely working on a system where you may even be able to confirm sort of more kind of granular updates, like seeing the differences that it's generating, and then go from there. But anyway, that's just how that works. So here's something that, so now that we have something here, I want to show you what the sort of real root of this is. If I go to the page, you can see we now have this new block, which is called a div. And if there's any coders out there, you'll know that a div is essentially the one of the most common sort of root structures in HTML. And on its own, it has basically no styling or really any properties. It's essentially just an empty container. And so when it comes to creating layouts, even our row and column blocks are actually just divs that have certain style properties associated with them. So for this new system, I decided to take things down one notch and essentially just have this raw div element that allows you to structure things however you want. And by default, the page doesn't have any padding or margin. It's just an empty canvas for you to do what you want with. So you can see here this root div that's just the one element in the page. It has some properties associated with it. And if I clean up this CSS styling here a little bit, I can see that, there are several things. There's these flex properties, there's minimum height, and there's a background color and all of that. So what I can do is if I start deleting these things, you can see that, things start to change. And so I have this. So this, if I just delete the CSS, you can see there's basically nothing. It's just a very, very simple container that just directly wraps the boundaries of the elements that are inside of it. And so what we're still working on all the fine details of like how this is actually going to play out in the user interface, like in the editor. But one thing that we think is pretty exciting is this idea that you could either edit the raw CSS or you can hop over to this visual version where we essentially pull your CSS into an interface like this. And now, you can edit it. And we'll be able to do stuff like, if we can detect if it's a background color, we can still use the color picker. And then you can always hop into the raw version to edit things in greater detail. And in the raw version, you're going to have some very fancy abilities to do things like set media queries, which allow you to define advanced mobile responsiveness and things of that nature. So I'm just going to show a few more examples of some of these sort of core elements here that I can edit, and then maybe I'll hop over and see if there's any questions or anything like that. So let's go to this this div here, and in fact, I could make it an image. It'd be ideal if it were an image. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to add an image, and I'm going to try, if I can, to drag it into the preferred spot. All right, nice. So again, the AI will be able to generate images, but right now we were just focusing on the sort of layout structure. So, that's why this is set up this way. So now that I have this image, I can go back and I can add a border radius, let's say 20 pixels, something like that. So this is cool, but okay, I want to figure out why this card is so large exactly. I kind of just it's like full height for some reason. I think it has something to do with, there we go. All right, perfect. So here's something that is very, very cool, that if you've ever used our custom blocks, especially our custom repeating blocks, you'll understand how kind of powerful this is. So in the new system, any div can be turned into what we call an iterator. And so if you turn on the iterator setting, you're essentially saying, hey, I'm going to select the data source, and then this item, instead of just being one item, is actually going to iterate over the entire list of information. So I can choose my clients list, let's say, and now you can see it's looping over. And if I want to actually turn these into dynamic variables, I can do so just with the record dot name or record dot email. So you can create these fully custom cards or tables or whatever you want, and we're going to have full support of the standard click on a record, see the detail view, or trigger a custom action, and pagination and filtering and stuff like that. So it's essentially going to be like a totally custom grid block, but one where you have full control over the parent container as well. So this is where things get pretty wild. So I'm going to take some of the styling off of this core block, and then I'll show you what we can do with this container CSS up here. So right now, all right. And, sorry to anyone that is not at all familiar with CSS. We will be making this fully editable without having to write CSS. And of course, the AI is going to be able to do quite a lot of that for you. I just want to really articulate to our power users that you really have full control. You can just get right in there and edit things. And so when we have an iterator, this new field appears called iterator parent container CSS. And that means that we've essentially injected one more container to wrap all the items that are iterating. And now we can start to do really cool stuff. So I can say, I can start to define the spacing of these cards. I could define that there's a flex wrap property so that they loop like that. I can set, I can't remember off the top of my head if it's a flex. There's a setting called flex basis. I don't know if it's on I think that's how it works. There you go. So you can set like the minimum width for a certain element. You could say, I think flex grow allows it to stretch. So you can do some really wild stuff. So like, now that I'm here, I can go view like, the phone, tablet, and I can start to really experiment with this stuff. And of course, if I don't put flex wrap, then we're going to end up with essentially a carousel. And so, these are not styled perfectly right now, but the whole idea here is you really, really have the power. And I don't know if my sample data set right now has images. I don't think it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm just actually going to hop over to I think it's my default app, and I have some examples. So here's my applicant cards. And so again, this is just a totally custom iterator div that looks like this. So very similar to what we're just working with, but it's got an image just to show you that you can do that. But you have all the style properties. So you can do, you can add custom borders, you can adjust the sizing and all that kind of stuff. So I think that is covering most of that stuff. And I think one more thing I want to show before we'll do a few questions and then maybe just go through a bunch more, examples and stuff like that would be something that I tried earlier, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'll just call this test. And so let's go back to the Copilot. And so one thing that I was having fun experimenting with is that you can even ask for, color themes. You can ask for dark mode. You can do that kind of stuff. So I was trying something like this before. So I was saying, a modern, sleek startup landing page for an AI, marketing agent with, in dark mode with neon color accents. I don't even know if it's gonna let me do this. We'll see. So we'll watch this happen in real time, and hopefully it's cool. Oh yeah, cool. I mean, that's a decent starting point. And to be fair, I didn't really ask for anything in particular. So there's kind of two things that we can do to make this better. One is I can be way more specific in my prompt, and then I have a feeling that the AI will be, extremely responsive to that. On the other hand, Frontly has a little bit of a responsibility to really try to provide even better sort of training data and examples so that even when you aren't super specific or clear, the defaults will just be, really stunning. So those are just a few examples. We can generate a lot more custom stuff. Like maybe we'll try one more thing here. Let's see, maybe well, you know what? I'll let the users request something. So I'm going to stop sharing. And all right, so let's see. We're 25 minutes in. That was a lot more than 5 minutes of rambling, but I'm excited to just maybe have a bit of a discussion. So, Justin, do we have questions? Anything coming?
We have a few questions. Just a lot of amazing responses from our community attending today. So just while I think people are recommending their suggestions maybe into the chat so it's all visible. Here's one question from Yolad Samir. Can we have a div's ID displayed somewhere in the settings, or even better, be able to set it ourselves?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good question. I guess. Interesting. I'm always like really surprised by what our community sort of thinks of being able to do, and I admit and appreciate that anytime people have asked for sort of advanced JavaScript, CSS, HTML, any of that kind of stuff in the past, I've been pretty resistant because Friendly's core system just wasn't really designed with raw HTML. And so allowing it wasn't really easy and sort of conflicted with kind of the way that things were working. But with this new approach, now we're sort of going into it hoping and expecting that you will want to take control of more aspects. And so I think Yoladmir's question is an interesting example where, I suppose if we were to create repeatable, sort of predictable block IDs, which by the way, every block does have a unique ID. So that's, that we just have to show you, which has never been really useful before, other than in that one block variable where you can kind of reference like the data from a block, which is, interesting. But yeah, I think we can just make that sort of an easily accessible thing. And then I suppose if we ensure that that's also actually used as either like a CSS class and or an ID in the HTML, then you could do some pretty wild stuff. Like you could run custom JavaScript to dynamically update the styles of things in real time, which is crazy. And, Justin, I'm sorry, but you're going to start dealing with the weirdest support requests ever because people are going to come to you having completely destroyed their apps by like adding a full screen banner that's covering their entire editor that won't go away and weird stuff like that. So,
Looking forward to it.
We're going to have some sort of like kill switches where like on the back end, honestly, like, because you can do so much with CSS, you can just go and make a full screen container that blocks your whole screen, and then you're just blocked from even editing it. So we're going to probably have to have some kind of setting that's sort of like, disable page level CSS, or temporarily or something, so that like you can get into a page and edit it. But anyway, that'll be really fun. So yeah, great point, Zamir, about having sort of a reference ID. Shay said it would be interesting if we can click on an element div and tell the AI Copilot to make changes to that specific element. Absolutely. So here's what I have planned, and it's I admit, like, this webinar, like 1 or 2 weeks from now, when we have a more built out system, I'll be able to show way more interesting stuff. The goal here is to have this Copilot be a persistent sort of helper that could be used at any stage, whether or not you built your app manually or through the AI generator or whatever. And so the idea is that you'll just have this AI Copilot, and at any point, you'll be able to ask it a question, and it'll actually be able to potentially answer a lot of, support questions, like kind of technical things, explaining, how to set up hidden filters, stuff like that. It hopefully will even be able to sort of direct you to different parts of the app or pages in the settings and things like that. But most importantly, it's going to sort of generate essentially like a list of updates to apply to your page, which could be adding new blocks, could be even maybe adding actions, and it could also be revising existing blocks and actions. And so with that system in mind, the AI is going to be taking in some context of, your existing page content, your data table sort of schema and stuff like that. So, we're going to have to make sure that everybody's aware that if you are using the Copilot, it's going to be at least aware of, the names of your table fields. And so we'll have some kind of opt-in system for this Copilot in general. But, we won't be feeding it your actual data, just sort of the schema, because then the Copilot can do really smart things. It'll be able to generate dynamic variables that are actually hopefully correct. And even in the cases where it can't generate like a functional action or logic, it would be able to hopefully at least explain what you should set up to some degree. And I actually had a brainwave last night while I was working on this that, in this same vein of thinking, we have a JavaScript action. And as long as I make sure that the AI system understands the standard sort of syntax of that JavaScript action and all the other aspects of your page, the AI should actually be able to write custom JavaScript functions for like that you can trigger in a multi-step action. So pretty insane to think about. That's the kind of stuff that I want to enable. And fortunately, AI is really good at writing CSS, and it's really good at writing JavaScript because it knows, it's probably trained on bajillions of lines of code. So anyway, so but back to Shay's point, I would love to be able to have you, click on, like we already have this concept of, you select a block, now you have the active block in the page builder. So I think we'll just have a setting where, if you have an active block selected and you're going to use the Copilot, it will probably have some kind of confirmation that says like, run, request just for this block, or, or for the whole page or something. So,
can we ask one more question before we jump into maybe another demo? I think this is a pretty important one. So Elias asks, when will this be available for us? And if it will the current design of our pages change with the column row approach? Do we have to redesign our pages, or will it be a smooth transition?
Great question. The initial plan, because this is a bit of a fundamental shift in sort of how pages work, and it's like the actual functionality of all the blocks, like tables and forms and those kinds of things, like that's not really changing. Actions aren't changing, but it's just that the actual visual rendering of a page, the structure is so different that I think we'll just be making this an opt-in on a per page basis. So it, admittedly would be a bit tedious for you to go and like convert every single page over. Right now, at least for the first stage, that's just how it's going to have to be. We very well may eventually be able to, have a smooth migration. It's just, I think it's not even worth us focusing on that part quite yet, just because like, hey, you know what? At this point, the feature will go live and we'll say, when you create a brand new page, it will automatically, have this like new system probably, but any existing pages won't be auto updated. There'll be some kind of setting that you can go and toggle. And so really, I would say that like for the smoothest transition, what we would probably end up recommending is duplicate your page, adjust that page to the new system, then go and, adjust it and mess with it. And then when you're really ready, you could pretty much just sort of change the old page route or URL to, products -1 or -old, and then very quickly go and change the other page to the previous one. And then you're essentially swapping them out in your app navigation. You may also have to update page references and stuff at that point. So I'm not sure. It's going to depend on how sort of like how critical your live data is. If your app has a lot of rows and columns, and things like that. If it doesn't have a lot of rows and columns currently, then it probably wouldn't be, that big of a deal. So someone asked, someone said make an AI copilot to create knowledge base and docs for the app. That's pretty interesting. Okay, so yeah, someone asked about are we going to what kind of AI is powering it now, and are you going to make use of Claude 3.7 in the future? So if you're talking about this like AI generation and copilot stuff, I'm kind of in the middle of testing multiple different models. Right now, I'm actually using this Google Gemini model that is very fast and very affordable and seems pretty great. I am trying to test some, even more expensive and powerful models, but yeah, no, it's going to be very cool. I'm not sure, like, I think probably will, for our AI systems, like these built-in ones, we'll probably just sort of determine which models make the most sense and kind of not have that be like a editable setting for this. But if you're talking about, the AI actions that you can trigger in your app, then of course, that is already now customizable. And we have, I think, 6 different options. And so with the system that we have now, using Open Router, we are going to be able to enable tons more models. We just kind of want to make sure, like, even though Open Router does allow us to have essentially a somewhat standardized AI interface that made it easy for us to add these other models, but not every single model works the exact same way, and they don't always, they don't all support the exact same features, like structured outputs and some things like that. So we're just going to be sort of continuing to sort of monitor like which models are becoming popular, which models are being requested by the community, and eventually we actually might just allow you to just type in your custom model name based on the Open Router information. And that we could do that, but right now we're just making sure that things are actually working. Okay. Shay says, how about naming the divs, not the actual IDs or classes? Oh, yeah, it's actually, I'll just go back to sharing my screen for a second, because I think, yeah, there's a few things to show off. So this in my, here, I'm going to go back to my barbershop app. Oh, actually, I don't know if did I save any of these AI generated screens? Okay, yeah, here's one. So yes, these all say div right now, but they are, they do all have a reference label. So you can do that, then you'll see it like that. So I have made that change. The only reason why these are all still saying div is because this is not the current version. In the newer version that's slightly broken that I'm working on actively, where the AI is actually labeling all of the divs automatically when it's generating, just so that it will be hopefully clear, right away when you look at this hierarchy, what you're seeing. And now that we're starting to deal with these more advanced hierarchies, or at least we're expecting users to be dealing with a lot of these, we will probably also build the feature that has been requested a few times, which is like the ability to collapse and expand certain parts of this hierarchy. And to be honest, I'll probably end up completely redesigning this hierarchy thing, because I think we could do a lot better now that this is going to be more relevant thing. Right now, it's a bit hacky, to be honest. If I try to drag something from a spot to another spot, I would say that only about 50% of the time does it go where I wanted. Sometimes it leaves the container, sometimes it doesn't. I wrote all the logic for this, so it's like I know that I know how it was supposed to work. It's just not the best interface. So I think what we'll do is we'll just sort of look at some really good examples of how other systems do this, especially for collapsibility. Now, keep in mind, drag and supported in the interface as well. So, I'm just destroying this page right now, but but yeah, you can still drag things around. So anyway, that's how that's going to work. Now, any other last questions, Justin, that you saw that came in that you think would be worth talking about before we maybe just try? Now, I'm actually just to frame this, I'm kind of hoping the community will message in with their own prompts right now for pages that we can build. Ideally, ones that aren't like, well, yeah, just visual ideas that we want to see. Let's just test how the AI can do.
I think we had more questions than suggestions here. So let's see.
Anyone wants to pass in some suggestions now,
Yeah.
you've got some time.
Did you want to answer one more question about the ability to undo any sort of changes that the Copilot might have made?
Sure.
Is that a possibility in the new system?
Yeah. So right now, the only time where you have that opportunity is when the AI generates it. You have the ability to either sort of say yes or no, and then that either applies it to your page or completely clears the generated. Here, I'll just do another example. So let's say, what would be interesting? Okay, God, I'm trying to just think about this. An analytics dashboard with a large vertical column on the left and three cards stacked on the right. All the cards should be white with 30 pixel padding and a nice deep box shadow. So this is just like very simple example. See what happens here. Cool. I didn't really ask for very much, and it's not using our analytics blocks yet. So let's say I'm in this stage. I have this. I can either hit accept or I can hit clear. If I hit clear, it just goes away. And right now, we're only showing examples where you're starting from a blank page, but this same concept will be applied when we are even updating existing pages. So, even if you have an existing page and you were to say, hey, update this block in this way or something, the AI will come in, you'll see the change in real time, but it's technically not like applied to your page yet, and you'll still have the opportunity to do that. I think that most likely we will try to build even more of a granular sort of like page state kind of, I don't want to say versioning because we already have a page version system, which I suppose we could use. So I'm not sure yet, but like ideally, yeah, you'd be able to, even after you'd applied the changes, it would be nice if you could still possibly revert back. But as it is, and at least every time you hit save on your page, you do get a page version created, and then you're able to access some somewhere. Yeah, browse versions. So I guess I haven't saved this page, but anyway, so yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff we're going to work on. I appreciate the ideas and suggestions because some of these are things we're already thinking about. Some of them are maybe things we haven't thought about. So yeah, I think it would just be fun to maybe try a few more kind of like full user interface design sort of prompts. And then we could also, I can also show some sort of custom CSS building from scratch as well, just to sort of articulate like, so, maybe this is an interesting time. While if anyone has any prompts that they want to try, just keep, send them in so that we can try a few before the end of the webinar. But if you start a page right from a div, so empty page, this is basically what you get. I've added a few default styles. Otherwise, it's just sort of a that's how clean these styles are, is that if you add a div, it's basically nothing. It's just a line because there's no content in it. So, if I want to create a page, so this is what I think is maybe one of the coolest things about this, is that right from the core of your page, and you could do this technically, I think, before, but I think anyone who has been dealing with custom CSS stuff in Frontly, or I imagine that you, like I have probably run into situations where but something isn't working. There's like weird spacing or something like that. And that's just because of how our system was rendering.
Patrick, can I interrupt you for a second? I think your audio is cutting out right now. Is everyone else experiencing this? Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How does it sound?
It works like spottily. So you'd be talking one moment, but then it'll cut out for a few seconds after. Right now, it's cutting out.
Okay. Well,
sorry about that.
Let's why don't we try some prompts here, because I don't have to talk that much.
Oh, I'm cutting out too. So it's probably our software. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone.
Okay. All right, I'm going to just pick Elias's prompt here. Keep in mind, there isn't a Google Calendar integration right now. So, oh, I see. Don't think it's going to be able to bring in those logos either, but either way, let's just see. We'll see if it gets the structure. Interesting. I should have read the prompt more to understand. Huh. Okay. Well, interesting. So let's see what's actually going on here. So like we said, ideally these would actually be the logos, but that's not possible right now. But we can go to these and see, what's sort of, yeah. So like they have these static widths, we could basically make these nicer, right? We could go, I don't know why it was it's like setting a max width of 80% or something like that. So anyway, the thing now is that you can generate stuff, but you'll be able to make things quite nice now. I think you won't be limited, because you actually just can go in and hack all the styles. So AI is really nice to generate a bunch of divs and get the structures. And, stuff like this, like I think would either naturally be mobile responsive or it'll be easy to make it mobile responsive. So it looks like this isn't. So all I have to do to make it mobile responsive, the sort of simplest way, we're in a Flex container, which means that all I have to do is type in Flex wrap, and now it decides when it gets to a certain size, it's going to force things down. And if you set, there's this setting called Flex Basis, which, which tells the Flex container that the smallest size in width that this should go is 350 pixels in this case. So that's now smart enough to tell the AI that like when there's enough space, we do that. There we go. All right. Anyway, so that was interesting. Again, this is just the start of this system, and there's going to be a lot of improvements even before it goes live. So we're just kind of having fun right now generating stuff. Any other interesting prompts here? Okay.
Shay sent through a really interesting one if you want to give that a go.
I do. All right. I can't wait for you guys to be able to play around with this. It feels like a video game. It's especially when you'll be able to create stuff and then put it in the marketplace. So, it's just going to be this like infinite loop of craziness. All right.
Want to read the
Justin,
prompt?
Is my audio still cutting out?
I think it's a little more stable now, as long as you can hear my voice still, since it seems to be affecting my audio.
We'll see.
Too.
All right. Create an interactive web page that generates quotes from Marcus Aurelius, the esteemed Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. The design should reflect the grandeur and aesthetics of the Roman Empire, incorporating vintage elements to evoke a sense of history and wisdom. Very cool. I'm going to actually go on and just add, feel free to use whatever colors you want. In my current training for the AI, I've kind of tried to sort of keep it somewhat wrangled in terms of the color schemes that it chose. And so I might actually have to end up removing that because I think it's limiting it too much. Also, an idea that I've been having around this is that I think what we'll do is we'll have the users be able to define a set of their own preferences that are then passed into all of the Copilot requests. So, maybe your preference is always dark mode, or, always use at least minimum 20 pixel padding on everything, or don't use borders ever, just use, drop shadow. And like, these are some of the rules that like I might try to pass in as the admin, but I think that if we instead make it sort of like a customizable, like maybe we have a bunch of prompts that you can sort of collectively add and turn on and off that get passed in. Anyway, just saying it'll be pretty interesting. So let's see what happens here. I think something broke. So I'm just going to try to refresh this page. I think I confused it with Marcus Aurelius. Wait, what the heck? Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. I mean, not a lot of grandeur and aesthetics of the Roman Empire here, I had to say. Maybe the italicized text. That's about all we got. Let's just try again. I think this has been saved. It's something's weird's going on right now. Okay, that was just lame. I mean, I don't know. I guess yeah, we're gonna have to. This may be one of the limitations of the way that it's running right now. I have ideas about how I can improve it, but we're using this sort of like very fast model to actually generate the content. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe I could, have some kind of hybrid where I could use one of the more expensive, smarter models to try to sort of like explain what needs to be generated, and then use the fast model to like kind of actually make it happen. Because I'm not feeling very excited about this Market Aurelius page. Marcus, I think it said Market. All right. Anyway, no grandeur at all here, really. So, all right. Well, that's cool. Anyway, you guys get the idea. It's gonna be pretty fun. There's gonna be a lot of stuff you can do. And so, this is essentially, yeah, this is essentially a hybrid release, because on one hand, even if there was no AI component at all, this, when we release the new page sort of rendering system, it's going to be very, very powerful. Oh, one thing I don't know if I mentioned is that with the iterator, which is essentially the repeating option for the divs, it's just so much like faster and not glitchy compared to a custom block. The way that our custom block system works right now is not really ideal. The main purpose for a custom block originally was just to sort of save a combination of blocks and then be able to add them to a page. And then eventually we added the ability to do the reusable and then repeating. And I think, to be honest, I think it's overcomplicated. And so one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this was, like, after this, like, you barely, like, I don't even know if anyone will use the grid block anymore, because the grid block is just a really basic sort of unstylable version of what you can now just totally custom build. And especially if you can just custom build the basic structure with AI, just like I did in my first prompt with the image on the side, stuff like that. But now you can do lots of stuff, right? Now you can add, icons and multiple images and badges and all these kinds of things. And yeah, like, all this stuff will still support, block versions and conditional rendering and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just the way that we have our current block system set up is just, it's very heavy. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're essentially building like a custom page and then having that custom page inside your other page, and then it's looping. And so, for anyone that's experienced that glitchiness, I think you'll also see how, light this feels in comparison. So very excited about that. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I love these webinars. I know it's just me rambling for like a whole hour, but yeah, we're excited here. So Shay asked, are rows and columns being removed, or will both divs and row columns coexist? I think row and column will be removed for the new one. We, maybe we can find a way to make it even easier to, maybe we'll have like some presets or something. I'm trying to think about like what's the best way, but I just think it's critical to have the new system be truly just based on these divs. And really, the row and column are just, they're just divs anyway with a few style settings. So I think what we can do is probably presets. Like, I mean, essentially they are just, they could just be custom blocks, but they can be these block presets. And so, we can have card presets. We can have, even just row and column presets where they have, a display flex and the gap setting and all these, the flexible layout things. And so, maybe we'll have some kind of browser or something like that. It'll be pretty interesting. And will there also be updates to the modal/pop-up view to include more dynamic data? So yeah, that system, I think we'll kind of probably just have to rethink that whole system as well, because the reason why the modal action right now doesn't really support a lot of dynamic data is because it has to be, I think, I'm honestly, I never even use it, so I don't even remember, but I'm pretty sure it's, you create a custom block and then you select that custom block to be the content of the modal. Does that sound right? I'm not sure. But yeah, Vishnu, to comment on your comment, yeah, these updates won't be applied to any existing pages. So it will be an opt-in on a per page level. Eventually, I can't see any reason why. Maybe one day we can have a really smooth transition, but yeah, I think essentially it'll just be, it'll just be one-off pages, just so we make sure no one's styling is changed. We just want to make it easier moving forward for people who, who want that control. So yeah, lots of things to consider. We will definitely make a lot of notes from the questions in this call, Probably I'll use AI to summarize them. But yeah, we'll write all this stuff down. Some people have made some really good points that are, we're thinking about it. It isn't just the page. It's the page rendering system, and it's going to be the detail views and things like that. I'm thinking about forms and how right now we have the form block, but we also have the custom input blocks. And the custom input blocks aren't like totally streamlined, but the form block is pretty limited. And I think with this new system, because the AI will be able to create like completely custom bespoke layouts, I'm going to try to lean in a little bit more to finding a way to either make the form block hyper customizable in terms of layout, or more likely lean in more to a slightly new form system that does use these sort of standalone input blocks and maybe just makes it easier to sort of tie them together somehow. But anyway, the point is, we want you to be able to create custom, custom forms that have different shapes and sizes of fields and things like that. Can we design an entire landing page with HTML, CSS? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, it's still going to be in Frontly's builder like this, but you just want to think about it like it is, like, these are all divs, and so that's your sort of standard HTML. The blocks that aren't divs are going to be the ones like, there are ones like tables and forms, and that will be more, our actual blocks. But then image will be a proper image tag. Button is going to be a proper, button HTML tag. But almost everything else, text will be like a P paragraph tag, like the true HTML elements. And so you really are structuring an HTML layout, and then you just have to apply the CSS to it and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of people won't even have to think about this because there will still be the visual editor. You'll be able to do it a lot. And I'm really hoping we get the AI to the point where like you can truly just accomplish most of what you want with the AI, just in terms of structure and layout and styling. And then you can just tweak it more with AI and then you can tweak it manually when you need to. And so that's the goal. Even for people who know exactly what they want, it's going to be a totally streamlined process, I think. I'm lazy, so I don't want to manually hack together these layouts. I want to just tell the AI to do it. I'm sure everyone else feels the same way. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is having some presets would be really, really, really interesting. And like, we have the block marketplace. So I think that's probably like, we have the pages marketplace already. So maybe that's how we'll manage the presets. I'm not sure. We'll see. Anyway, thanks everyone so much. I wish we could talk forever, but really I should get back to work and go, finish this and make it work so that we can release it. I know everyone's, probably keen to test it out. We will, I'm thinking like maybe as early as sometime next week, we'll be able to have some version to test out, and it will be opt-in. So if I can release it that way, then, we'll just have to release it in beta and essentially make sure that, it's not breaking everything. So yeah, thank you so much. If anyone has any other questions, we're thinking, I don't know if we'll bother or not, but maybe we'll do some kind of like survey or something like that. We can continue the conversation in Discord, of course. So if anyone's not in Discord, join our Discord. It's awesome. There's almost 1,800 people. So yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for all your questions, everyone. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but yeah, we'll send out a survey. And if you have any direct questions you want to ask us, the chat bot is still there, and you can connect with me directly and our team. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.